Insurance carriers, distributors, and advisors are under pressure to improve operations and enhance the customer experience. New challenges require new digital technologies that drive fundamental business model changes. Anyone navigating this shift must rethink the technology driving their back office, front office, and customer experience. Equisoft's modern end-to-end insurance solutions enable the rapid digital transformation required to address such problems without the risk. Specifically designed for the needs of carriers, distributors, and advisors across the value chain, our diverse solutions are transforming the back office with Equisoft Manage, a low-risk production-ready cloud platform built on an industry-leading insurance policy admin system, and Equisoft Centralize, a turbocharged agency management system that streamlines distributor operations. While our front office solutions accelerate sales and improve customer servicing with Equisoft Illustrate, a persuasive illustration and quoting platform. Equisoft Apply, providing streamlined yet flexible digital electronic application, and tools uniquely suited to advisor efficiency like Equisoft Connect, our insurance advisor-specific CRM, Equisoft Plan for an in-depth wealth planning platform, and Equisoft Analyze for Advisors, our comprehensive asset allocation and wealth analysis tool. All flawlessly implemented and supported by our globally proven services group, successful implementations and data migration capabilities, backed by dedicated onshore teams of experts and a multinational roster of clients. The tipping point has been reached. The time to embrace and begin your digital transformation journey is now. Start your modernization with us today. Insurance carriers, distributors, and advisors are under pressure to improve operations and enhance the customer experience. New challenges require new digital technologies that drive fundamental business model changes. Anyone navigating this shift must rethink the technology driving their back office, front office, and customer experience. Equisoft's modern end-to-end insurance solutions enable the rapid digital transformation required to address such problems without the risk. Specifically designed for the needs of carriers, distributors, and advisors across the value chain, our diverse solutions are transforming the back office with Equisoft Manage, a low-risk production-ready cloud platform built on an industry-leading insurance policy admin system, and Equisoft Centralize, a turbocharged agency management system that streamlines distributor operations. While our front office solutions accelerate sales and improve customer servicing with Equisoft Illustrate, a persuasive illustration and quoting platform. Equisoft Apply, providing streamlined yet flexible digital electronic application, and tools uniquely suited to advisor efficiency like Equisoft Connect, our insurance advisor-specific CRM, Equisoft Plan for an in-depth wealth planning platform, and Equisoft Analyze for Advisors, our comprehensive asset allocation and wealth analysis tool. All flawlessly implemented and supported by our globally proven services group, successful implementations and data migration capabilities, backed by dedicated onshore teams of experts and a multinational roster of clients. The tipping point has been reached. The time to embrace and begin your digital transformation journey is now. Start your modernization with us today.
Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to the All Things Actuarial session on Match Day 2 of the 33rd Annual Caribbean Actuarial Association's conference. Of course, it's a session especially put on for both university and high school students in person and online at no cost to be part of the session. We have a really great session lined up for you. We have two really great speakers that we're really happy to have here. One from Toronto and one from the United States, Baltimore in particular. So I'm going to introduce our speakers now, give you a bit of their bio, and then we'll get going. So our speaker from the University of Toronto is Professor Samuel Boverman, who received his PhD in mathematics in 1976. He is now a Professor Emeritus of Actuarial Science at the University of Toronto, U of T for short, having retired in 2022 after 42 years as a faculty member there. Professor Boverman is the author of several books in actuarial science, one of which is part of the reading list of the Society of Actuaries, professional examinations, and he continues to be an active in the education of actuaries and has been affiliated with ACTEX publications for over 40 years. Professor Boverman was born in Winnipeg, which is in the province of Manitoba in Canada, where he began his career as a professional singer and continues his career as such. Right? While pursuing graduate studies in mathematics and while pursuing an academic career at the University of Toronto, he has continued performing as a singer and has appeared in venues across Canada, the US, Europe, Asia, and Trinidad and Tobago. He has recorded several jazz albums and one album of parody songs that are related to his association with mathematics. Professor Boverman is also my mentor and was my professor and chair of the program at the University of Toronto when I was a student, and has had a great impact on the Actuarial Science degree program at the University of the West Indies at St. Augustine since its inception in 2011, coming to the campus in 2015 to assess our program and help with its evolution. Our second speaker, I'm telling you about, is Dr. Candice Marshall, and she has been the chair, the director of the Actuarial Science program in the Department of Mathematics at Morgan State University, which is in Baltimore, Maryland. Yes. Morgan State is the only historically black college or university that has an actuarial science degree program, right? And that started in since August 2018. Under her, so you've been there since 2018. The program was there before.
2009.
2009, the program started. Dr. Marshall has been there since 2018. Under her leadership, Morgan State has successfully initiated several actuarial and insurance professional organizations, including a Gamma Lota Sigma chapter and the International Associations of Black Actuaries chapter. So these are analogous to the University of the West Indies Actuarial Science Club, right? So they have two actuarial science clubs there within their program. Dr. Marshall's primary research areas are algebra and combinatorics, particularly Riordan group theory. Did I pronounce that correctly? Her most recent publication in the Applicable Analysis Journal can be found by clicking here, which we'll see later. More recently, she has been working as the lead researcher on a team of 3 after being approved for a leveraging big data grant sponsored by the UNCF. Don't know, you'll have to explain what that is. The United Negro College Fund. Excellencia, and the Coleridge Initiative. Dr. Marshall continues to stay connected to industry both through her professional development efforts and through projects at the Travelers and Symetra. So Travelers is an insurance company, yeah? Travelers Group. Dr. Marshall holds a BSc in mathematics, an MA in mathematics, and a PhD in industrial and computational mathematics, all from the institution that she is now the director of their actuarial science program, Morgan State University. So, after that introduction, I'm going to have our speakers begin today's presentation. Please.
Are they going to put up our slides?
Yeah, you're going to put up this slide. Here you go.
I can stay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Stokely, for the introduction. We decided to put together some slides because I know sometimes it's a lot easier to just scan QR codes to get to things easily. So I put some QR codes in here. I started off with, oh, why is it going? I'm not doing anything, it's just going. Wait. I didn't do anything. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so we have quite a bit of students who are already into actuarial science. So a couple of these, again, are basic. They're for the high school students because, again, happy that you're here. You already chose this, but some of it is geared at the high school students to tell them why it is important that they choose actuarial science, or they should at least consider actuarial science. So moving on to this slide, I just put these here because I knew we were going to present, so I figured we would say a little bit about the institutions where we are, right? I don't know too much about UE. I don't know if you wanted to say some stuff about UE for the high school students, but I'll start with Morgan State. And Stokely already mentioned, we're the only HBCU that has a Bachelor of Science degree in actuarial science. There are a couple HBCUs that have a math major, and they might have a concentration in actuarial science, but that's not very common. And in the US, it's like a 1.5% of actuaries are Black. They round it up to 2% most of the time. And so diversity is at the top of everybody's list. And so I get quite a bit of calls from companies because they would like to diversify their employee pool. And because, again, Morgan is the only HBCU, they come to us. And again, part of the reason I really wanted to come here is because we have lots of scholarship opportunities, but not enough applicants for those scholarships. We're in Baltimore, Maryland. Yes, when I left there, it was 30-something degrees, but it's not always like that. Sometimes we get some really nice weather. We have not had snow in a while, so that's not an issue. But yes, I know the weather here is much nicer, but again, just before this, we were talking, maybe we could consider, an exchange program where students in UE can actually come for a semester, see if they like it. And the thing we've been talking about a lot is that getting international students actuarial positions after. So again, we have quite a bit that we want to discuss, but I just wanted to just give a general overview of Morgan itself. Sam, would you like to say something about University of Toronto?
Is this mic,
Is the mic working?
you have the mic on? Okay.
Okay.
Can you hear me, folks?
You have to. There you go.
University of Toronto, yeah. I was there for a long time, retired last year. First came actually to University of Toronto in 1976 to the math department. And at that time, the actuarial program was part of the math department, and a schism occurred between the mathematicians and the statisticians around that time. Statisticians wanted to analyze data, and they wanted modern, what was considered modern at that time, wouldn't be so modern now. Computing equipment, mathematicians wanted to work everything out with their brains and a pencil and a piece of paper. So that schism resulted in the creation of the Department of Statistics, and the actuarial folks were given the option to stay with the math department or go with the statistics department, and they made the very careful and intelligent decision to go with the statistics group. So, but in many places you'll find actuarial programs with a math department, sometimes with a statistics department, sometimes with a business school. But because of the background I think students need in order to get going in an actuarial program, I think a mathematics and statistics department is important. An affiliation with the business school, very important, because ultimately that's the goal, to work in industry. So you find these programs, actuarial programs, kind of mixed in terms of where they live. I don't know whether it's because other departments want them or other departments reject them, but they find themselves in business schools or math departments or statistics departments. By the way, the actuarial program at University of Toronto is the oldest in North America. There are courses that go back to 1875. I started shortly after that, but it's a long-standing program. And for many years, I think in North America, there were very few actuarial programs. And for any of you who were at the reception last night, I mentioned the low profile that actuarial science, the actuarial profession has had compared to many other professions, and that's been the case for a long time, and it still is the case now, I think. And we do our best to do outreach to high schools, in particular, to raise the profile. And so for many years, the profession was served by very few programs. There's a couple of programs in the States that are old. University of Michigan goes back to 1910. But sometime about 35 years ago, somehow the profession got a big bump. The jobs-rated almanac came out and ranked actuarial the actuarial profession as #1. And like magic, overnight, almost overnight, the number of people taking, it was called Part 1 then, now it's Exam P, doubled. And there was a carryover as time went on, and universities took notice, and they started, more and more schools started creating programs in Canada and the US. I think you said UE started 2011, is that right? Yeah. So a lot of the programs that exist now are much more recent, recent being in the last 30 years, but that gives students a wider choice, but to choose where to go to study. And those of you who are already trapped in Stokely's program, you know, you're sort of done. But those of you that are high school students, you have still many options to consider. You know, Stokely's program. I don't want to. Is it your program? We'll call it your program. I'll call it your program. It's not a bad choice, but there are many programs, and as Professor Marshall has indicated, good program at Morgan to consider as well.
Yeah.
Those are my opening comments.
So I just realized I didn't say, I started at Morgan in 2001 as an undergraduate student. I'm from St. Lucia, by the way. I left home. I started as a computer science major, But after my first semester, I realized that math was my passion, and I switched like right after that first semester. While I was doing my master's in 2009, that's when the actuarial science program started. So even though I was a student there, I still did quite a bit of the actuarial science program, and that's why I was asked to come back to lead it after I graduated with my PhD in December of 2017. So going along, to piggyback off of what he said, some schools have their actuarial programs in their business school. When our program started, it was a tug of war between the School of Business and the School of Computer, Math, and Natural Sciences as to where the program would be housed. And of course, we won because for the actuarial science major, students take math, business, econ, accounting, and finance classes, but the math classes outweighed the business classes, so that's how they won. So I always try to ask people, what is an actuary? I don't like to answer the question. You know why? You could get so many different answers to that question. Actuaries manage risk. That's what, that's the most common definition, but I want to stop and ask them to tell you what an actuary is.
Financial risk, for sure, but all kinds of financial risk. Short-term risk, which we find on the casualty side, accident and property and so on, and long-term risk, life insurance. Hopefully people live a long time and don't have to collect on their insurance, or their families don't for a long time, but the way in which those risks are assessed are quite different. For the short-term risk, much more statistical analysis is required. Statistics is an important component of every actuarial program, but for longer-term risks, different sort of modeling is required. But again, what you summed it up. What an actuary does is model financial risk to aid people who are subject to financial risk and need protection from it. Financial risk of all types, lost income because of accident, lost income because of death, losses because of other accidents, auto and home insurance. Climate events are becoming more and more important, and in fact, I just read an article a couple of days ago about whether or not in Canada the Canadian insurance system is going to be able to withstand the losses that are anticipated in not too long. Canada had a devastating forest fire season, which caused a great deal of damage, and those fires sometimes encroach on residential areas. That's California. Tremendous losses, and actuaries come. Well, I shouldn't say actuaries come to the rescue. They don't put out the forest fires, but they try to put out the fires that arise because of the liability and financial risk.
I would describe an actuary as someone who has a variety of skills from what they have studied that give them the ability to quite rigorously and robustly quantify risk associated with cash flows. Traditionally, it was at insurance companies where the contingent event, the probabilistic event that they were modeling was life, whether you were alive or whether you were dead, as the case might be. With property and casualty insurance, it's some inanimate object, whether it's destroyed or not. But really, this skill set is applicable to any business that has cash flows that aren't guaranteed. And I can't think of a single business that exists like that. So that's everything that Professor Bookman and Dr. Marshall has said is true. And I'm just taking a step further where I think the skill set is applicable to any business that has contingent, stochastic, probabilistic cash flows.
And of course, the mathematical skills are important. Analyzing data, one common practice, of course, is to use past data to try to anticipate and model what happens in the future. And you look at different ways of statistically modeling what may happen in the future. You can't always anticipate what will happen. We had the epidemic of the last few years that wasn't anticipated, and the excess deaths that it caused had a real impact on the life insurance industry. And so it's important for an actuary to be able to model, anticipate extreme situations based on what's happened in the past and what might happen in the future. And all of this is done really using mathematical models, and that's why probabilistic models, some deterministic models, all of that is important, and that's what hopefully you learn to do when you go to Stokely's class.
Or Dr. Marshall's class, or
Dr. Marshall.
or Professor Bovman's class.
Yeah. And traditionally, the actuaries worked mostly in insurance and financial services, but now we're seeing actuaries everywhere. And why? Because risk are everywhere. So anyone who wants to determine how to deal with certain risk will hire actuaries to quantify those risks and figure out ways in which they can deal with this risk. So we're seeing actuaries being employed everywhere in all industries.
Could I add something? Those of you who are already students will know, but those of you in high school and considering studying actuarial science, there is a very rigorous set of examinations that cover all mathematical and some business aspects of the insurance world and financial risk, and that rigorous program of examinations has been around for a long, long time. Requirements to become a professional actuary, and as a result of that, people in other areas of finance, in banking and so on, have traditionally had a great respect. Traditionally have had a great respect for actuaries, people with actuarial training, because they know the rigor with which they've learned developed their mathematical background. And so the reason I mention that is just my experience with over the years in talking with and discussing with people in the financial area. They do have a great respect for actuaries, people with actuarial background, and as Dr. Marshall said, they're welcome in many areas of financial risk, not necessarily just insurance.
Yeah. So I put this up here because this is a very good site to get a lot of information about actuarial science. And these here are just a few questions that would be answered if you go on here. And you can literally get links to actuarial programs, opportunities, and all that sort of stuff on this Be an Actuary site. Again, a lot of the information is collected from all the bodies, and there will be links that will take you outside of here. So in the US also, we have two main actuarial bodies, the Society of Actuaries and the Casualty Actuarial Society. I know here that the Society of Actuaries is more popular and they deal with life and health, but in the US we have the Property and Casualty, which is governed by the Casualty Actuarial Society. They don't administer the first two exams because people normally take those at the Society of Actuaries, but they have other exams after exam 1 and 2. And recently with the They just revised the exams. We had the first 3 exams were the same, so now it's only the first 2. So it's the exam in probability and the exam in financial math. These are the 2 common exams. And for our program at Morgan State, we don't sway students one way or the other. What we do is advise them to have internship opportunities in both areas so that they could make a more informed decision about where they want to go. So life and health is a lot bigger, I would say, but property casualty is, those auto insurance companies, homeowners insurance, and so like you saw Travelers there. Travelers is a P&C company, whereas Symetra is a life and health company. And so that's the difference here. And both of these organizations have free memberships that have libraries of a lot of valuable information that you can tap into. So those QR codes would be to the SOA. They have what they call an affiliate membership. And again, you get to talk to people about a lot of different issues, and you get a lot of information about anything you could think of. And then the CAS has a student central portal, which is the equivalent, and there are lots of free information, free modules, free programs for students, right? So these are the QR codes here.
I should add that the actuarial designation, at least for Society of Actuaries in the US and North America, and the Canadian Institute of Actuaries, which is separate body in Canada, has a fellowship as well. Those are legal or designations that have legal implications. An actuary that analyzes the reserves and financial aspects of an insurance company signs off on those, and that and has to have a certain designation, fellow of the Society of Actuaries, fellow of the Canadian Institute. So these are legal designations that you would be working toward in the profession. I want to add about the Canadian aspect. For many years, the Canadian Institute was closely allied with Society of Actuaries and Casualty, and as Dr. Marshall said, there's been some changes in the exams in which Casualty Society in the US and Society of Actuaries have sort of split a little bit, which is unfortunate. At one point, you could do half of your professional exams without actually making a decision between the two, but that's not the case anymore. But that's beside the point. My point is that in Canada, the Canadian Institute a few years ago brought in a new program called the University Accreditation Program, in which certain university programs, if they meet appropriate standards for their courses, qualify for this program, and graduates in the actuarial science program from those universities get certification up to a point. They can avoid taking several of the examinations. There's a sort of a capstone exam at the end of their undergraduate program, but they don't have to take exam 1 and P and FM and so on. They can avoid all the intermediate, some of the intermediate ones. But that's, of course, restricted to Canada. So if a person wants to have their actuarial career in Canada, then that's okay. Not all the other international actuarial organizations recognize, there isn't reciprocity yet, but I expect that as time goes on, that will happen. And the society also now has a university program. I don't know that there are that many schools in the U.S. that have signed on to it, but it's possible on an exam by exam basis, as opposed to a program basis, to get credit through a university course. But again, there's some pretty rigorous conditions that universities have to satisfy in order to qualify. So I don't think that's playing a big part yet. I think most people are still writing exams.
I should add, not just in Canada and the United States, Trinidad and the Caribbean, actuaries by law have to sign off on the reserves, right? In Trinidad in particular, up until relatively recently, it was only for life insurance companies. You needed a fellow, well, either from the Society of Actuaries or the Institute and Faculty of Actuaries, which is the British body, to sign off on the reserves. It was not needed for property and casualty insurance companies, so car insurance companies, house insurance and such. But that's changed. And in other nations in the Caribbean, by law, for an insurance company, you need an actuary to sign off on the reserves. Yeah.
So Professor Broverman brought up the University Earned Credit Program. Currently, there are 11 universities, I think, in the U.S. who offer university earned credit for certain exams. As part of the diversity initiative, Morgan State was approved to offer university earned credit for the second exam, which is financial math, and we started that last spring. So you could get...
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that you can get university credit for P. Is that correct?
No.
Students have to write exam P.
Yes, because I think, well, from all our meetings, I think the consensus is that we want students to demonstrate that they can actually pass an exam. And so that's why it was decided that we should keep exam P as an exam. So exam FM, Morgan gives university earned credit. You have to get an 85% or above. In my opinion, though, it's harder than taking the actual exam because they're long answered questions. They're not multiple choice like the exam, the FM exam itself. And the exams need to be approved by an external examiner. It's not just the professor doing what they want to do. Everything goes through a rigorous process. And you have to know the material well enough to get an 85%. But it's just, I think it's a good thing for people who get anxious when they take tests. They would prefer to do a course instead of taking the exam.
I should just mention that apart from this, this is a new thing, getting credits through university courses for actual SOE exams. There's also, and this is more for the high school students, there's also the VEE credits, Validation by Educational Experience. And I know certainly U of T has that, I'm guessing Morgan State does as well, where you can get credits for courses, the SOE, they're not running these types of exams. So in economics, in accounting,
finance and mathematical statistics.
Yeah, so well, there are three. There are three of them now.
Yeah.
So UE's program at St. Augustine, all three programs, you can get those credits once you've gotten the requisite grades in the courses related to them. And some of the credits require maybe 2 or more. You may not necessarily, and you have to get the grade in both. So for instance, say the grade is 62, and you need 2 economics courses. If you get 101, right, and 61 in the other, you don't get it. Yeah, just to be clear.
Also, I believe the Society of Actuaries website has a fairly comprehensive list of schools that offer actuarial programs to one extent or another, and indicates whether they offer the VEE and so on. Yeah.
So the dark green on here, these are the VEE. And notice they put accounting and finance together. That was a recent revision. So it's economics, accounting and finance, and then mathematical statistics. And these are just via coursework. And for us in the US, the student has to earn a B or better. So if you got a C, that's not enough. You have to retake the class if you want to get VEE credit. And the SOA does a good job of listing all the schools that are eligible for VEE credit and what class you need to take in order to satisfy the credit with the grade earned. So these are the preliminary exams to get your first credential for the life and health track. It's called the ASA, Associates of the Society of Actuaries. And notice that you have to take 6 exams, and then satisfy the VEEs. And there are lots of e-learning. These are modules that you do online and take a test at the end to verify that you know the material, right? And similarly, for the Casualty Actuarial Society, they have these, they also have these online classes. DA is data analytics, RM is risk management, and IA is insurance accounting, right? So these are the equivalents of like online courses you need to take. So exam 5, they say is the main exam, is the rate-making exam for the Casualty Actuarial Society, where you learn how to determine pricing. What are you going to charge the customers? So that's why they say it's like the bread and butter of the Casualty Actuarial Society. But these are the exams and VEEs and online courses you would need if you did the casualty track, as opposed to the Society of Actuaries track. And again, all this is going to be on the Casualty Actuarial site. And if you sign up for the casualty student, there's student portal. You have access. Well, anyone can look at this, but if you sign up for the free membership, you also have items in the library that you have access to. These are your web pages.
Well, there's some, are these slides going to be made available to the students? There'll be some place where they can reach them.
Yes.
So those are some links to various websites for the University of Toronto program. We have a very active student club. And speaking of student club, I think I strongly recommend any students to get involved in the club, develop your communication skills. Very important when it comes to meeting with recruiters, to make it clear that you know how to communicate with them, because that may well be an important aspect of what you're going to have to do when you're working as an actuary. And I strongly recommend getting involved in the club and other activities that will improve those communication skills. We actually have a course, we've had it for about 15 years now at U of T, which is dedicated to communication skills. But in any event, I think it's very important to develop those skills. Yeah, I don't really have anything to say about those websites.
Yeah.
People can visit with them.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just mention the internship aspect of programs. University of Toronto does have an internship program. For many years, it was only summer internships, because the regular courses offered in the program were only offered in the fall and winter terms, and in the summer, very few courses were offered, not enough of the higher level courses to allow a student to take that as an academic term in their upper years. So in order to have an internship program, it's really important that courses be offered more or less every term, so that when students come back, they don't waste their time waiting for another term to take those courses. So we have that, and there are a few schools that have that, and that's also pretty important. If you can get an internship, it looks very good on the resume. It shows, assuming that the internship went well, it shows potential employers that you have some maturity, business maturity, employment maturity. So that's something to be looking for when you're looking at a program.
So just a little about internships. All our students at Morgan are strongly encouraged to do internships from their freshman year. During the semester, they do virtual internships, mostly at our biggest partner, Symetra. They're on the West Coast, but they offer our students internships virtually, paying $25 an hour, 20 hours a week. And I think it's very important to show the students the connection between what they're learning and how they're going to use it. So I think that's a great way for us to keep our students engaged. And that's why we strongly encourage they start doing them from the time they were freshmen.
And also recruiters want to be sure that you'll show up every day.
Yeah. So this slide here is a Summer Academy of Actuarial and Mathematical Sciences. We started the Summer Academy of Mathematical Sciences back in 2009 when the program started. But 3 years ago, we revamped and added an extra A in there because we wanted it to be more actuarial focused. So in the 6-week program, students take a math class, Intro to Actuarial Science, and at the end, they come up with an insurance product that they can market. And it's based on all these modules that they've learned over the summer. So we teach them a little bit of everything. We teach them about the tracks, basic rate making, how to do, expected frequency, expected severity, come up with a rate, how do you make profits, how to load these up. We teach them quite a bit. How do you market the product and who are your competitors? How are you going to price so that you're not going to be too cheap that you're not going to make money, but too expensive that you're not going to be chosen as the insurer of choice. So they learn quite a bit. So this is for the high school students, and you can apply. So since 2020, we've had a virtual component. We're slowly going back to being in person, but we're still going to admit students who choose to do the program totally remote. So it's open to students, high school students in Trinidad also. You do get paid a $600 stipend, well, at least $600 for participating in the program. Some students get as much as $1,000 because we do have special awards for attendance, most improved student, best grade, and that sort of stuff. So some students get as much as $1,000 for completing the program. It's completely free. There's no fee to apply. Completely free, and you get paid. And it's a way to explore actuarial science to see if it's something that you like. So you're not making any commitment, but spending your summer doing some math and actuarial science, and as long as you complete, you get paid. So any questions about the summer program? Say that again? No age requirement. And again, if we do have an in-person, so this year we did 5 weeks online and 1 week in person. And like I said, the 1 week in person was optional. So a few students chose not to come, but most of them came, and we had field trips and that sort of stuff, and everything is room, board, everything is covered if you come to Morgan, and then you get your stipend.
Just mention on the slides for University of Toronto, there was a link to the exchange, a student exchange program. University of Toronto has an extensive international exchange program, and the actuarial science program is part of that, so that, and I think UE and University of Toronto have an agreement for the actuarial
an
program.
MOU that allows that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So usually it's sometime around third year that a student will go for a year, 1 semester or 2, and the bonus is you get to enjoy the fine winter weather in Canada.
Well, so for our students, you can second or third year, one of the semesters in second or third year, it is possible to go. Chandini, who is the past president of the Actuarial Science Club, she went last year. She was going to go in January, but I convinced her to go in September to December, where the weather is a bit better than in January. And of course, U of T, so And with that program, and to be clear, when you go on exchange at the University of Toronto, you pay UE tuition, yeah? Whatever that is, not U of T tuition as a foreign student, as a visa student, which is considerably more expensive. You have to come up with your own room and board, but there's scholarships for that. U of T students, of course, can come to Trinidad, and they continue paying whatever their fees are at U of T, but they could come, for instance, in January and be in Trinidad during we have a little carnival down here, and the weather's a little better than at U of T, and a little bit better. And the courses for our program are designed by someone who the actuarial courses in particular, who went to U of T, me, right? So the courses we are a younger sibling of the University of Toronto's program, yeah? So just something to keep in mind for our high school students, and both in person and online, wherever you are.
What's your slide?
This, so what I'm going to talk about here is, all right, you get this degree, you get a degree in actuarial science. Ultimately, why do you get the degree? You get the degree because you want to get employed at some, you want to make some money, right? So I keep relatively accurate statistics on and track every single graduate that has graduated from the University of the West Indies Actuarial Science program at St. Augustine since its inception in 2011. So we've had to date 209 graduates, 66, well, just go back one side, that, go back, go back.
I'm going
Right.
back.
No, you went forward.
Look, I'm going back.
No.
Now I'm stuck.
Let me see. There we go.
Now it's going fast.
One more. There we go.
There we go.
Right? So 66% of our graduates have been female, 34% male. Next. We have 75% of our graduates employed, or 10 or 11% unemployed, 8% in postgraduate programs, 6% unknown. Of the 10% that are, 11% that are unemployed, some of them are by choice because they've taken time off to study for exams or for whatever reasons. It's not that they've been, in some cases they have been looking, I can't find them, but in many cases it's because they're probably not that interested in being gainfully employed for whatever reason. Yeah? Right, so here are the percentages of our graduates who are employed at traditional actuarial employers, insurance companies, actuarial consulting firms. Those are what I would consider traditional employers. And 42%, and we have about 58% who are employed at other institutions. Again, when the program was first started in Trinidad, there were naysayers who said, "Oh, what are you going to do with all of your graduates? There aren't enough jobs at insurance companies and such." What in fact happened is insurance companies actually started hiring more people because they had more people to hire to do jobs. They had a supply now that they didn't before, right? And other non-traditional employers figured out, wow, here is a product that can add value to our organization, that can bring analytical skills, quantitative skills, modeling skills to help us make decisions so that our institution makes more money or minimizes the loss of money, as the case might be. Yeah?
And as I mentioned, did you see that more are non-traditional than traditional? Because everybody hires actuaries these days, right? Not just insurance and financial services. Do you want this one?
Yeah, sure. So far we have one graduate who is a fellow of the Society of Actuaries, 5 who are. So there are 2 levels, of course, the fellowship and the associateship. The associateship being sort of the midway point before being fully qualified. So we've had 1 fellow, 5 associates, 1 associate of the faculty, the Institute and Faculty of Actuaries, which is the British body. So, and 1 chartered enterprise risk analyst, which is an associateship level designation that you can get through the Society of Actuaries and other institutions as well. The IFA offers it. So that's also a powerful credential to have. Right. So it was hard to get all of these on one slide. So these are the employers of all of our graduates. There are 66 employers in 9 different countries, historically, of all of our graduates and counting. Yeah? And it spans everywhere. Sorry, go ahead.
So I didn't do such a good job of tracking all my students, but of those that I do know, I did put together one slide, and this is where my graduates are. And I only have about 60 graduates of the program since it started. So yesterday we did have an alumni panel, and 12 of them came back. We have it annually. It's always nice to have our alumni come back to talk to the current students. And like I said, we don't collect data as Stokely does. He does a really good job. He knows where everybody is. But of those that I do know, these are where they work. And again, you could see that they don't all work in the insurance and financial services. We have some students who work at other places. And again, it's because they're so well-rounded with an actuarial science degree that they can choose to go pretty much wherever they want to go, right? So with that, we will open, one last slide. So we do have scholarships. Like I mentioned earlier, we have 13 corporate partners. And a lot of them have funded scholarships worth $20,000 each, where you get $5,000 a year for 4 years. Of course, if you go over, you would still be funded. But ideally, we would like you to finish in 4 years. As long as you maintain a 3.0 GPA, which is a B average, and you remain an actuarial science major, your scholarship is guaranteed. There are other actuarial science scholarships that we can help you get also, because there's the STEM Stars program funded by the Actuarial Foundation, which is another $20,000 scholarship, just like ours. And then there are other scholarships by the International Association of Black Actuaries, by Milliman, by Spencer, that, of course, we can help you apply for to help bring down the cost of education, because we know that no one wants to think about student loans when they're finished with school, right? So with that, we'll open it up to questions from the audience.
But just on the topic of scholarships, at UWI as well, there are scholarship opportunities. For instance, there's the Fullerton Long Scholarship, sponsored by Andrew Long and Norbert Fullerton, who are actually here in person at the conference. So they give out 2 scholarships a year to UWI students. There's also a scholarship through the Actuarial Foundation as well, I believe, that's sponsored by Mike McLaughlin, who is a former president of the SOE and, of course, is Jamaican. And there are a number of others. So there are opportunities as well at the university while you're in school to get scholarship money, not so much to pay for your tuition, well, you use it for whatever you want, actually, but to cover the cost of your living expenses, books, transportation, food, whatever. Yes?
Yeah. So any questions from the audience? We did such a great job. Yes. Okay, so good question. So most actuarial programs will prepare you for at least 2 to 3 exams while you're a student. And it is advisable to have 2 to 3 exams. Why? Because I have a student who is scheduled to graduate in December, and she just got a job offer, but with each exam that she has passed, it's an additional $3,000. So it would be in her best interest to have as many exams as she could possibly have. And that is typical when you get an offer. The more exams you already have, the greater, the more your starting salary will be. The other thing too is when you get hired by most insurance or consulting companies, they do have what they call student leadership development programs, which is what you're being placed into as long as you're taking exams. And they provide everything you need to take exams. They pay your fees for the exams. They give you, on average, 100 hours of study time per exam, paid study time. And they give you like the day of the exam off and that sort of incentive. Again, if you pass on your first try, you get a bigger bonus as opposed to if you take multiple attempts. So it's structured in a way where you get enough support that you can continue passing exams to earn those designations as long as you're serious and committed to the actuarial profession. Yes. 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 And so what I showed you was the associateship. After that, there are 3 more exams for each of them, so you can get a fellowship, and that's the final, that's considered the terminal degree, sort of, in the actuarial world.
And
When you say when they left my program, they were not credentialed at all. A lot of them had 0 to 1 exams when they left because, again, sometimes it's challenging for students to study for their actual classes and then study for exams. Associateship or the fellowship, yes.
So those aren't degrees, those are professional designations.
Yeah.
And you don't have to have a degree to get them. You could just write, but you can write the exams. So for instance, Kyle Rudden, who has his own consulting firm here in Trinidad, just wrote the exams. So it's Kyle you might get hurt if you try to follow Kyle's example.
did he go to grade school?
He did.
Yeah.
He did. But doing the exams without doing a university degree in actuarial science, it is possible, but it will be way more challenging to do it that way. Yeah. Yeah, that's what
Yes.
what everyone does actually.
Yeah, insurance companies, if you're on the actuarial track, they encourage you, as Dr. Marshall said, by paying for your exam fees, providing additional study time, up to 100 hours for each getting study materials for you. And so as long as you're on successful on that track, that continues.
Sorry, is there a mic? So, are you on with the IFOA? Are you on IF? No, no.
Yes, I'm with the Institute of Faculty of Actuary. So I went with I joined PwC as a graduate back in 2001, and I'd not studied actuarial science. Back then, there were only a handful of courses around the UK that would give you those exams. The only stipulation from the Institute of Faculty was you had to have done they preferred you have done a maths-based degree, but it didn't you could have done chemistry, biology, what have you. And they very much take the view that as long as you've got that kind of maths behind you, the exams will be the exams. But PwC gave us a lot of support. So, like they said, they would pay for your exams, you would get time off. It was very structured. You had a study mentor. There was a program you would go through. So that's always an option. And I managed, you go through, and I have kids and get through it. So to me, it's a great career and it's a great option. But I know that when you start at 18, you don't probably know what you want to do. Some of you may know what you want to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then sort of found myself into that path, and it's been brilliant. So.
I mean, and just to be clear, most people that get degrees in actuarial science, graduate with degrees in actuarial science, will not go on to become fellows, all right? Not necessarily because they can't, it's too difficult or whatever. Just the degree on its own is a powerful tool to have in your toolkit, yeah? Right? The data speaks for itself, right? There's one person out of the 209 that's a fellow. Look at all of the companies, 66 companies that everyone else is employed at, and salaries are going for our graduates. Salaries are actually increasing. The demand for them is increasing because what is happening now is non-traditional employers have discovered, wow, we have this talent pool that we didn't know anything about, who are getting things done very efficiently. So the demand has gone up for people with actuarial science degrees. And also with coming out of the aftermath of COVID, where employers realize, wow, people can work remotely, so it doesn't really matter whether you're in the States or Canada or in Trinidad, right? So they are now, companies are realizing, for instance, in the Trinidadian example, that a North American firm will realize, wow, we can pay someone in Trinidad less than what we pay them in America, but more than what they get paid in Trinidad. So that has driven up the price of poker in Trinidad for our graduates, right? And we've seen that phenomenon happen. So the future is bright.
Yeah. When Dr. Marshall showed the series of associateship exams, I think toward the end of that, there are some exams that involve data science, which has erupted in the last few years as the hot new area. And the actuarial requirements now, professional actuarial requirements, include more and more data science. And so, as Professor Smart was saying, the background that students get through an actuarial program provides them with such a wide breadth that even if they don't move into an actuarial career, they're prepared for a career perhaps or moving into data science because they'll have some background there. So an actuarial program really provides background for a very broad range of applications after graduation.
Yes. Oh, the mic.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to know, if Morgan has like courses that are geared more towards like casualty as opposed to like life and health.
So no, I would say no, because we offered before P, FM, and IFM. And the other thing is that we have what we call introductory curriculum. We don't get as far, so some schools are designated as having advanced curriculum because their programs are so big and they have all these students and they need more classes. We do have a partnership with University of Wisconsin-Madison, which is known as the Center for Actuarial Excellence under the Society of Actuaries. And so if there's a course that we don't offer that the students want to take, they pay Morgan tuition, but they could take the class with University of Wisconsin-Madison if they are advanced enough to take those classes. So that's how we take care of that. But we don't find students passing 3 exams and then nowhere to go, like you said. We could possibly like partner with a school that does and have them take the courses there if that happens. Yes.
Go ahead.
Very good question. The accrediting body in Canada is the Canadian Institute of Actuaries, and in the U.S. is the Society of Actuaries and Casualty Actuarial Society. And for many years, there's been a close association between them. In fact, Canadian students would take Society of Actuaries or casualty exams, and then toward the end of working toward their accreditation, they would take Canadian-specific, more practically oriented exams, and they could become a fellow of the Canadian Institute without being a fellow of the Society of Actuaries because they didn't take the specialties. Although some specialty exams were recognized reciprocally, and so many fellows of the Society of Actuaries are also fellows of the Canadian Institute. For instance, I have one sitting beside me, don't I?
No, I'm not.
FCIA?
No, I'm not an FCIA.
Oh,
So
well.
back in my time, if you became a fellow of the Society of Actuaries, you then had to go and write an additional exam, and you had to have a certain amount of work experience to become a fellow of the Canadian Institute as well, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But so that's not the case. So it's one of you had to do an additional exams. I had written a lot of exams.
In North America, once one gets to the fellowship level, it's not difficult to get reciprocal kind of recognition.
So with the Institute and Faculty of Actuaries, the SOE and the IFOE have a reciprocal agreement where it's very easy to become if you say, for instance, you wanted to work in England and be able to sign valuation reports and such, it's I think it's a half-day course I think that you take. It's basically the. Go ahead.
I do want to say to address a more particular question you asked. The Canadian Institute of Actuaries has implemented this university accreditation program, which is not recognized by the Society of Actuaries. So if somebody opts for that in Canada, for instance, University of Toronto is one of several schools that qualify for the Canadian Institute's accreditation program, and if a student takes that route, then at least up to now, it's not recognized by the Society of Actuaries. They still would have to take the exams of the society in order to get that recognition. So some of these changes have just been evolving over the last few years, and they're not done yet. So we'll see where they land.
And right now in the Caribbean, that route, the university route to become a fellow of the Canadian Institute of Actuaries, that's not recognized in the Caribbean for the purposes of signing valuation reports and whatnot. But as for the SOE and the IFOE, it is recognized in the Caribbean, and the CAS as well. What time is it?
Any other? Wait.
Oh, yeah, no, we're not that. We'll have time. No?
We frightened these students, man.
They've been well. Yeah.
Any
Can't
other
get more
questions?
Any other questions? Oh, yes, Nathaniel. Wait, hold on a second, Nathaniel.
Yeah, the microphone will help. Yes.
Last night, after experiencing that great performance from you, my question is, how were you able to balance your career as a professional musician as well as your career in academia?
That's a good question. I've been performing as a professional musician since essentially I was a teenager. Before I was a professional musician before I was a professional mathematician. When I went to graduate school and was working on my PhD, I actually worked professionally as a singer, and I got some pretty good work that actually helped pay my way through university. But there was a time demand, both studying for a doctoral degree and also preparing for performances. And I was asked many times by my thesis advisor, Sam, you got to make a decision. Are you going to be a musician or a mathematician? And I didn't want to make that decision, so I tried to walk the line between them. And after I graduated with a PhD in mathematics, and I pursued an academic career, the music kind of had to take a back seat. The intensity. If you want to do something well, you have to, focus your attention on it. And it really wasn't possible for me to do both at the same level. So in more recent years, I've had a little more time to devote to music. And I didn't abandon it entirely, but I stuck with it. And I think, any of you who are considering a professional career as an actuary or some other profession, but you also have a passion for something artistic, don't let it go. It's an important, if it's an important part of your life, you shouldn't abandon it. And you can make both parts of it work.
I mean, did you get your actuarial designation before or after you got your PhD?
I got my actuarial designation just after I got my PhD. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a professional sportsman, for instance, but I've been quite heavily involved with squash, for instance, and also football. And I represented the Trinidad nationally. I played for the Trinidad and Tobago men's national squash team a few years ago. But so it's possible to.
And you can't do that part time.
No.
You have to be right in it.
Yeah, but I mean, I was doing other things, but it's possible. I did that in 2006. Yeah. So it is possible to, when I got my fellowship in 2008. Yeah. So it's possible to do other things, and to have a life and complete the exams and be successful. You don't necessarily have to be unidimensional, but the exams are very, very, very demanding. Yeah.
That at different times in your life there'll be different priorities, and you have to have the will to put the attention to the important priorities at the time.
The eye of the tiger. All right, I think unless there's one more question, I think that's okay. One more, and then we're gonna.
From Morgan State University, you just mentioned you put up like a list of organizations where your students got employed after they graduated, and then you mentioned at the start that employers contact you because they're interested in like increasing diversity. So I just wonder if like that list you put up that would also be interested in diversity, but
Sorry, so we're not hearing you.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So you had so So I was wondering if these employers are also interested in hiring internationally, if they're interested in diversity in that way.
So, yes.
So I'm Nicola Barrett. I'm a Jamaican actuary and I work in the States. I'm also a hiring manager at Mass Mutual and other places where I've worked. And I also work on diversity. So the path that they're talking about, getting to fellowship, different credentials, becoming an actuary, I've walked that path myself. So I got my FSA 20 years ago. Yesterday was I got it November 15th, 2003. I got married 2 weeks later, and I got pregnant a month later. So I made sure I finished all of my exams before I moved on with my life. It is an incredible investment of time throughout your life, number one. And someone just mentioned priorities. You really have to prioritize your time and your balance and all of that. But as a hiring manager, yes, Morgan State is probably the only HBCU in the States that has a formal actuarial science program. Diversity is very big in the States now, so a lot of companies are beating down there. That's how Dr. Marshall and I met 2-3 years ago when I was working on specifically recruiting diverse candidates. I'm also a CAA board member, so I'm also trying to recruit Caribbean students to her program, to the States, to my employers, and other employers as well. So this group does include people who want diversity and people who come specifically to your class, your program, to get diversity, as I did. But we can find other ways to work together and find other ways to create diversity. A pipeline from the Caribbean would be wonderful, right? So the actuarial science program here with your degree plus exams under your belt, as Dr. Marshall stressed, is the number one way to get through to your entry-level program.
And yes, and I will add more and more. Again, it wasn't common, but now these companies are open to giving international students an opportunity for internships. And a lot of them, most times if they just say, oh, I don't accept international students, I normally tend to shut them down right away because I know there's a way for them to do it. And so because the market is so competitive, a lot of them are considering international students. Because I was an international student at one point, and so I understand what it is to be an international student looking for opportunities.
More and more companies are sponsoring now. I joined my company 9 months ago and at the time didn't sponsor at all. And I was able to convince the chief actuary to sponsor. It's not that hard. A lot of companies don't even think about it because there's so much availability in the States of actuarial science students. But more and more companies are doing it and thinking about doing it.
Yeah, I was able to get, actually my first actuarial role was in the States. I didn't have any sort of American citizenship or green card or anything like that. Had 2 exams, and the actuarial science degree. I had a law degree as well. And yeah, they sponsored me for whatever, H-1B1 visa at the time, which is a difficult thing to get. But point is, it's possible, right? And I think there's, so I would say if you can't find a way, make a way.
And you mentioned you had a summer program
where
the student could make an insurance product and try and market it. Would that program be good to try to get access to international employment?
So it's for high school students, and I don't think you're already in an actuarial program, so I don't know how much value you would get out of that. I would say, though, if you are interested in internship opportunities, if you send me an email, I get so many that I could share with you, and you could apply directly, and I always just follow up. Like, if you let me know that you have applied because they're our partners, I normally just follow up with an email, and that normally does it. So I can give you my business card when we're done, so you have my contact information. And yes, I have some students who are not in my program that I always keep in mind for positions. I would be glad to do that. Yes.
Okay, are we still going? No?
Oh, I thought I saw a hand. Okay, thank you so much for this opportunity to present to you. I'm happy, like I said, to talk to anyone afterwards, that we don't have to keep everybody here. And I will also be at dinner tonight.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Dr. Marshall and Professor Boverman. We have a token of our appreciation for your talk, which I'm going to gather and bring here. Just give me a moment.
Thank you very much.
So on behalf of the Caribbean Actuarial Association, I'd like to offer you this small token of our appreciation. It's some local wine and also some Trinidadian chocolate made in Trinidad with Trinidadian
No,
people.
no rum?
There's some rum in the chocolate.
It's rum and chocolate.
Thank you.